The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party, featuring weekly discussions on political news and current affairs. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party.
I really like the Lauryn Hill at the beginning of this. It's good.
You like the Lauryn Hill?
Yeah, we can keep that going.
We can keep that going for a little bit. Lauren's awesome.
What's up, my people? Thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live's Black Tea Party. I am Anthony Martin. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat at BLK Fist Activist. Follow Black Hollywood Live on BHL Online or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me introduce you to our host. We got a great show today. What's up, Shirley?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
How you doing?
I got a new haircut today. Went to a new barber, so I'm trying to.
Oh, you looking fly,
You
brother.
know,
I
that's
already
what
told
it
you,
was,
clean.
I was wondering what it was.
Yeah, it was that. It was that. Thank
Mama
you.
probably told you it's time. She probably had to keep you in check.
Yeah.
His little mama's always with him. My name is Shirley Hussar, H-U-S-A-R. Thank you guys so much for continually supporting our show. We know we have different opinions and ideas, and we want yours in the comments section. We love that. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you go to Shirley Hussar fan page, go to Urban Game Changer, and make sure, out of anything, you share our videos.
Bam.
That's right. I love that, Shirley. I'm Don Nash. You know me. Reach me on Facebook and Twitter, Don's Daily Dose. Instagram, I can be caught there. I'm just all in the game, trying to have a little tea, so I can keep saying.
Let's
How about
go.
that? That rhymed a little bit. Did you catch that?
I got you.
Quick.
About that. Mike, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Michael Timon, Mihkel from Michael. Look me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those things. I'm
All right.
here. Do you guys do Snapchat for real?
Oh, I do Snapchat all the time.
I do.
I don't get, man.
Yeah,
that's where I felt old. Everyone's like, "This is awesome." I'm like, I don't get it.
You are old.
All
I
right,
am on all
y'all.
of it, honey.
We have a great show for you today. Now, if you're a regular viewer, some things are going to be a little bit different. We're just switching it up just to make sure that you are getting the best visual experience. Or if you listen to podcasts, you're just listening, you're getting the best experience possible. Tell us how you feel. Hit us up. Let us know. So what we're going to do is break it up into segments. So the first segment today is Justice for All? Question mark. Like Ron Burgundy? Kind of like that. So basically it's like that. So what are we doing today?
San Diego.
In this segment today, this week, the head of the FBI went on and had a speech, and he talked about the Ferguson effect. Now, what the Ferguson effect is, in his words, is basically because of the issues that have been happening with young African Americans and police officers. Police officers are getting scared to do their jobs, so they're not doing it, and there's higher murder rates in certain cities, increases from last year. And he's attributing that to the people coming out, pulling their phones on police officers whenever they get out of their cars. He's putting it on, the tension that's become of police officers. So I guess my first question today is the Ferguson effect real, or do you think it's
was
just
it real in Montgomery, Alabama, when they said that was causing riots and violence all over the place? That's the same argument to me.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's exactly what they said when MLK was marching and stuff. And even with the Black Panther, he's causing all this stuff, and really these race relations are real. They're really happening. We've seen the Ferguson effect. We haven't seen any change.
Right.
We haven't even seen tickets go down in those places where that's what's happening, is people are in this sick cycle of being ticketed all the time by the police to make them profit centers. It hasn't gone down in Ferguson.
So do you think that it's just a ploy to make you feel bad for the police officers, or what do you think, Don? You looking?
Entertainment is wearing me out nowadays because everything is about soundbite.
Okay.
So what's the Ferguson effect? As Michael said, the same thing that was going on when we were marching during the civil rights. So don't come over here with these sound bites and think it's going to bring some profundity to what's really going on here. It doesn't do that for me. I think that, we have an issue. I think that it's good that the police department is now feeling the tension and feeling the pressure, because for so long it was just on one side.
Right.
But now you have this resistance, so now you feel it on both sides.
So the problem is that they're not doing their job. They're feeling the pressure, but they're not like standing. They're not going against the grain. They're just not doing their job. I think they said, I'm trying to figure out what cities it was, but I think it was South Carolina. It was some cities, but it was just an increase from 2014.
Well, Houston's seen an increase
Yeah,
in
Houston,
Chicago.
yeah, in Chicago, and another one by Chicago. But they're just not doing their job. There's a higher murder rate. And basically he's attributing, he says, it's not a paraphrasing, he said, black people are getting killed more this year, but it's not by police officers, it's by other black men. So he's trying to put it on the reason they're getting killed is because
they're killing themselves.
Yeah, killing themselves. But he's scared. He's saying because basically police officers are scared to do their job. They're staying in cars. I actually went to a festival last week, and it was in Crenshaw, and me and my wife noticed that the police officers were supposed to be kind of watching the area, make sure everything was going right. They did not get out of their car. They were basically in their SUVs, just kind of sitting and walking. They weren't walking around the festival. They weren't, interacting.
What kind of festival? Like just a
It was
music
a food festival.
Food festival. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a black food festival. So there was a lot of black people, but it was white police officers. Not that makes any difference, but they just weren't getting out their cars. So, I mean, do you feel like they're not doing their job, or what's going on?
Well, that seems like a perfect. Do you guys see that viral video? Okay, I'll bring it back. I promise. Okay. Do you guys see the viral video of the cop? Like there were these two teenagers fighting, and then he jumped in and he had a dance off or something like that.
Yes.
And it was funny. He ended the fight. There were teenagers being teenagers, and he knew right then. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna break this up," and they were scared. And he's like, "Here, I'll let you guys go if you beat me in a dance off." And when you're seeing those videos,
right,
there's creative ways to get people to do things. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to South Carolina in a minute with the teenager.
Yeah.
But, you're seeing that working, and it works all the time. And there was another video of British police this week that helped. There was a guy he had a machete. He had a mental illness, and they subdued him, and they got him to drop the machete. They were able to take him in. It's possible, and those videos need to come out as well. I think we need more of those videos to show, no, police, we see that these guys can do their job. Why aren't they getting out of their cars? That's a perfect time to introduce themselves to the community they're a part of.
I agree. Actually, just jumping to another part of that, one of the things that the FBI director was saying is that there becomes a thin line when Black Lives Matter movement becomes anti-police, and that is creating a bigger problem. So I guess one of my things is, do you think Black Lives Matter movement is anti-police or police accountability? Like, which one is it? Because I feel it's a little bit more of a police accountability. I'm not anti-police, but I want them to do their job and do it right.
I think that.
I want to hear. I know, Shirley, you're not feeling well today, but
I'm feeling fine. I'm trying to stay within line of the rules. So hey, when we think about the Ferguson effect, I don't think that's the right terminology to be saying that it should be called. It should be called the citizens effect. I think citizens across abroad have been affected in this matter. I don't think it's just Ferguson. I also think about the rules and the regulations of how the police are able to detain and obtain someone's rights and do what they do to people. I think they feel that their jobs are being stifled, and we feel that as citizens that you have crossed the line on our privacy. So there's some type of imbalance of what rights you have and what rights we have as constituents. Look, we have to bring some adjustment to these things. There's too many videos where children in schools are being attacked. People on the street are being attacked. Police officers are going beyond what is in their guidelines. And of course, later on, we find out that they jump the gun, they are prosecuted, they go to jail, the constituents get awarded a whole bunch of money, but who ends up up paying for this. We do.
Yeah.
It's very stifling to our pockets because they're not going after their pensions. They should go after their pensions when they don't do right. Any further pensions, some of them get 2 or 3 pensions. Any retirement money, take all the retirement money. Don't come to me and the money that we put in as taxpayers to offset these bad police officers. So I believe, as far as Ferguson, maybe not be the right term. I think it's the citizens now waking up and trying to create new legislation that needs to be in place.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We need to hit the director up, let him know.
But there's a question. I mean, if I can, you brought up this picture of this I don't know what it was that you attended this last week where the police officer stayed in their car.
Right.
I was talking with a group of people that had like a town hall meeting.
Okay.
And it was full of predominantly brown-skinned people.
All right.
But the police officers came and they lined the walls. And the response of the people in the town hall meeting was that, what are y'all doing here?
Yeah, it gets a little defensive.
It gets a little defensive. So on one hand, you're saying they stayed in the cars, they didn't get out. On the other hand, the other side of town, I'm hearing them say, why are they here standing up?
Well, that's
intimidating us. So there's a tension there.
But how were they? Were they there as like police officers concerned with some of the topics, or were they there intimidating?
Well, I mean,
that's my question. Like if they were there. That's part of the problem. We do need to have this communication with police officers. We need police officers at town meetings. We need that. We need to bridge that gap. And all this has to do with reaching out. It can't just be and that's the problem, is we have 2 sides here going, in my opinion. We have the police who feel they're being generalized as a whole, and I agree. We do generalize. There's a lot of really good police officers, and we a lot of times forget that. I've tried to be more conscious of it because I have friends who are police officers, somehow still my friend after all the things I've said. But I know. But that's the problem. We have 2 sides. We need to reach out. There needs to be. We talked about Farrakhan before, and my point with him was he's just saying what's going to happen. And that's what's happening.
Right.
We're seeing people fed up, and when people are put to the test and they have nothing left to lose, they want everyone to hurt. And that's what's happened throughout history. We can see it throughout history. Go back to the French Revolution. That was what that was about. It was poverty, and these people rose up against, and that's what we're starting to see.
But I mean, when we're talking about it here, what are we suggesting that the police should do to find that middle ground? Stay in the car or line the walls?
I think there has to be a middle ground. Exactly like that. Like, get out your cars, line the walls, but like create a conversation. Like if their purpose, which I don't know how that town meeting goes, but I think if their purpose was just to come there and just to like stand behind everybody or let them know, hey, the police is here, that's the problem. If you're there and you want to add into the conversation, then that's a whole nother thing, because people are ready to talk. They have grievances, but at the same time, they need your help too, because you are the police. So with that being said, you made a good segue about intimidation and then kind of just falling back. There was an incident in South Carolina in a high school. Was it this week?
Yeah, it was Monday.
This weekend it was
Tuesday.
it was a girl, and from the video, basically what I saw was that police officer came in. He said something and slammed her back, and then pulled her forward and dragged her out, and then handcuffed her on the ground. Now, with that being said, it was only the video, and I tried to read a whole bunch of articles, some Twitter from some of the people that are the kids that were in the classroom trying to explain what happens, but was it just a misinterpretation, or did something else happen before? What do you guys think?
Well, did you guys hear that she's now an orphan? She's in foster care. Yes. Her mom died 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. So this is, and this guy, I don't think it's racially motivated, because he's known as Sergeant Slam and he's done this to multiple. How does he still have a job?
That's a good question.
Because, if Slam is an acceptable approach, I mean,
how is that acceptable to do that to a child?
When you listen to the sheriff that defended it, he also fired him, but the sheriff defended his behavior. He said that when he approached this girl in the chair and put his hands on her to remove her from the chair, that was within the realm of his training.
I get removing her from the chair, right? Yeah.
But that was aggressive too.
Shirley from the chair,
I'm gonna be like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, if I'm gonna be like
the Avengers.
He pushed her back and then pulled her ass forward.
Yeah.
Well, but the sheriff said that all that was acceptable. That he did not cross the line until he threw her across the room. That was the point of violation.
But my thing is and I get there's there's no like gray area with how police handle people, but it just seems like, okay, this girl is probably a third of my size. I don't need to throw her anywhere. I don't need to push her back anywhere. I can firmly grip her like and pull her like to me and be fine.
Hell, I could pick up the desk with her in it and move it outside.
Dude, you
Exactly.
chucked the desk with her in it.
And from what I saw, I didn't see too much of her. I didn't see too much back talk. I think someone said she wasn't supposed to be in the class, and she didn't leave when the teacher asked her. But all the tweets that I read from some of the students that were in the class says that she was one of the most quietest students there. She doesn't really speak much.
She's having a tough time. She's
So
a
it's
teenager.
like, I mean, it was excessive force. I feel like, to me, I don't know. That's and like
There was
you
two
said,
other videos this week too of two officers intentionally. It looks like they corner this African American student, and like eventually they push him. He kind of moves around. When he touches them, they slam him. This is unbelievable.
It is.
and
And I hate these stupid arguments. This is the argument I've been hearing all day. Don's seen it on my Facebook. These teachers going, you don't know kids these days. You sound old. You're old if you're making that argument. Kids have sucked since the beginning of time.
No.
That's what kids do. So you got to be better than a teenager. You are an adult.
But I'm not saying that I understand what they're saying, but when you think about it, like these teachers deal with these students every day, and the school I went to, I mean, just give an example from the school I went to. The kids that acted crazy in my school, they didn't act like, oh, they're just messing around. Like, I would be scared if I was a teacher. I'd be a little nervous. I don't know.
Dude, I don't know how they weren't in the past. My uncle told me stories. I shouldn't sell them out. He told me stories of putting pipe bombs in toilets back in the 70s.
So how do you think we
can't
should
tell
handle
me
those
kids are
kids?
better.
So how should we handle those kids compared to kids that we're handling?
You
now?
catch them, you put them in detention, you do what you do with kids. I don't know what to say. You shouldn't say, I mean, if she was violently going at him, he should have still been able to subdue her. He should have waited. Like, have some patience with the kid. He didn't ask any questions. Apparently, it was within a minute from him walking into there
that's what I
that he
saw.
had decided, I'm removing this
No,
student.
in all fairness, he did ask her to get up and leave the class. She refused to get up. He says, if you don't get up, I'm going to move you. I'm going to remove you myself.
Yeah, I don't
So he
think that
did.
should be a thing.
I agree with you. I'm just saying let the facts be what they are.
Oh, no, I agree
So,
with that.
I mean, and he's one of those police officers that's stationed in the school. So what should we do about, like, those? They should, obviously, I'm sure he's had some type of training with children, like small, like teenagers.
Apparently
I don't know,
not.
but you say obviously, I don't know. Here's my question. I'm wondering, is there a scale? If we want to bridge the gap between the public or the community and the police officers, then at some point I've got to know that whether or not I'm standing here putting my backpack on and saying I got to get to class, if that warrants you wrestling me to the floor, or if I'm being defiant and I'm socking you and I've got a weapon in my hand, if that wrestles you, get me to the floor. Because right now, everything seems to warrant the same
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Yeah,
the only
that's
thing
the
I
truth.
know not to do
Right.
is don't walk away from you because you'll shoot me.
Right. Right.
But anything else, I haven't seen it.
Right.
I found interesting in that video is the other students. I watched what he did to her.
And
What I
nobody was
found
doing
interesting was the students, the other students. Everyone was shocked and scared
Yeah.
because they knew if they spoke up, that he could call in backup and it could just be pure chaos.
And that's
Yeah.
the problem.
And it was like saying, I don't want to be next.
This goes
Please
back to
do
the
not let me
Stanford
be
experiments. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
There's
that
one
was
kid
kinda
right in the frame, and he
nerve-wracking.
was like this. Did you notice him? And I kept saying to my daughter, I want him to speak because he was fearful. I saw the fear that you're speaking about on his
Yeah.
face.
Somebody tried to speak and they got arrested too.
Yeah.
And that's the
that
thing.
girl
So,
that
yep.
released the video.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
Another thing that the girl who released the video, even though if you watch the video that didn't have any video, you just heard the sound. She said, "Man, what did she do wrong? What did she do wrong?" And then she took her and noticed the teacher didn't say anything either.
The teacher looks scared.
You know, everyone is in a
Yeah.
state of fear. So it is the citizen against the police. It is the police against the citizen. It's the lack of communication. What I really believe we need to do is have town hall meetings in public schools. I think the parents should be introduced to the police officers who are on a regular basis, that are truant officers or whoever these officers that monitor these students, who walk through the classrooms. There needs to be a better type of communication and guidelines in place. because the more that we feel that we have a relationship versus a fear factor, the better we have in communication and the outcome of our children.
Do you think that there needs to be some impact on the training, though? I mean, when this sheriff comes out and says he reached and he grabbed her to get her out of the chair, that was within his training. And that, to me, I thought was a little bit too aggressive. If that was my 16-year-old daughter, I don't care if I met you at the town hall meeting. I don't care if I met you at the PTA. Don't put your hands on my daughter. But if you think that's an acceptable way of doing it, that's where I'm losing it.
I think the good of this is that we as a parent, I mean, me and you are probably the only ones up here with kids. If that was one of our kids, we would, we would be out.
We'd be outraged.
We'd be outraged.
Yeah.
So I will say this much to you, that to answer your question, what I would have done is, if we have a town hall meeting, tell me what are the guidelines for you handling my child. And if the consensus of the parents in the school feel there's a point of the guidelines you're out of, we want those guidelines changed, and what can we do to amend them? That young man, as Mike said earlier, that was pinned up in the corner with the trash can and the two cops who was just talking, and he did like this, and he's like, look, he's feeling like, I'm already pinned up, why are you doing this to me? And to throw him down and choke him like an animal. They really pretty much are going back to treating African American children as cattle, as live cattle. A chattel slave would be if treated 400 years ago.
I may have missed it, but have we seen anybody white thrown and wrestled to the ground like that?
Absolutely.
There's been a couple.
There's been a few?
Yeah.
I know there's one kid I heard about.
The Tyler Hammond got shot.
Yeah. That's the
I
only
thought
one
he was
I
the
know
token
about.
child. I thought they just made an example
No, there was
out
that
of
kid
him.
in Salt Lake City. There was that kid, remember? He was walking. He had his headphone. This happened around the time of Michael Brown.
Okay.
And he had his headphones in, so they yelled at him to turn around because they were looking for a suspect that looked like him. And then, so he didn't turn around, and they just shot him dead. Like this is a lack of checks and balances. And I brought up the Stanford prison experiments because that's what that was about. What they did is they took, they're going to have a great movie come out. I'm really excited about it. But they took a bunch of volunteer students and they made half of them prisoners and half of them guards. It's really interesting because they gave the guards no oversee.
Right.
So within, I think it was 2.5 weeks, it was supposed to be a 3-month experiment. Within 2.5 weeks, they had to shut it down because of the torture. These guys with no checks, or they had nobody overseeing them because of the torture they were doing to the prison guards. And that's what we're kind of seeing in some cases, especially in like schools where the police are their own separate entity. Like the principals, most of the time, from what I understand, don't have oversee on these guys. Over them is other police officers.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hopefully we won't have to talk about this next week. It just seems like we get a break.
Oh, we will.
We get 1 week and then we get another one, but something we will be able to talk about.
Just a suggestion, because Shirley's opened up this thing, and I think it's really valuable to say, going to schools and asking what is the approach when you deal with my child. But what about even the police department going through and releasing videos over typical scenarios? This is the interaction. This is what we expect. This is what you need to do, so that there is a communication from their side of it to the community at large.
We should do that for students.
I'm suggesting that.
That's all right, Don.
You heard it right here.
You heard it right here on Black Hollywood Live. So let's move in. One thing we can talk about that seems to pop up every week because Republicans love to debate is the Republican debate that we just had this past week. It was smaller, a little bit, kind of.
Was it 11, 10, or
but
11?
this debate
Still
now,
ridiculous amount.
I'm not gonna play
people.
too much into it. I'm not gonna talk too much myself. But one thing I noticed about this debate is it was less about the debate and it was more about the presidential candidates versus the
moderators,
the media. They were like going at them. Did y'all see
the
it?
moderators?
It was crazy.
Well, I did see it, and the moderators were pressing them and fact checking like moderators are supposed to, and they got all upset.
Okay.
They didn't really fact check.
Okay,
Yeah, they did. They called Ted Cruz
not
out.
as well as they should have.
No, but they were called. But the thing the RNC is upset about is that they were challenged, which is what a moderator is supposed. You saw it in the Democratic debates, and it wasn't a big deal. Bernie Sanders got grilled on guns. Hillary Clinton got grilled on her prison.
So
pass.
let me ask you this, Mike. You don't think that it was too aggressive? Questions? Yes, they fact checked. Okay, we can say that, but did they come at them the wrong way? Like, would you have felt disrespected if someone asked you the questions there? I'm just asking. Would you?
That's the questions they're supposed to ask. Did you remember the Bush-Gore debates? The questions they were asking Bush about his private business life and Al Gore about some of his policies were deep. That's what you want to know. I don't want to hear we're going to win again. I want to hear what your proposal is.
No.
I want to hear facts, and then I want them checked, because I don't want just things to come out and then people, oh, well, we're going to save trillions of dollars. No, actually, every economist looked and said we'd lose $13 trillion on your plan, Mr. Trump.
Okay.
No, that's not true.
Let me move to Shirley.
Well, today the chairman of the Republican Party, National Republican Party, came out, and they have decided to not do the next debate. They told NBC because CNBC treated them so unjust and said, we got tired of your got you questions. We decided not to do the next debate.
What got you questions?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The challenge is what happened with this debate is, these are men running for the president of the United States of America.
Okay.
We are the most powerful, the most effective, the place everyone wants to be with. And you've got one shot and one opportunity. You better lose yourself. And the fact that you have moderators who ask questions that are irrelevant to the job of the highest command is an insult to the final candidates. I'm not done yet.
What did they
For an
ask?
example, did you watch the debate?
Yeah.
Okay, did you watch the fact when they asked them about fantasy football?
That was dumb.
Okay,
I will say that was
and
dumb.
I can keep going with a
But
couple.
Bush started that.
No, he didn't start that.
Yeah,
It
he
was
did.
one of the questions he asked. Bush responded by saying, well, my score is 4-0. So he was trying to make a light humor of it. But the fact that it was put on the table was irrelevant. It was an insult because you only got so much of the American people's time, and you only are given so much time to these men of power. So after a while, a couple of these stupid questions or questions regarding your personal financing, these are questions other people can't respond to. It needs to be questions that are relevant, that's going to affect the American people.
But that brings it, we should have 6 people on stage so we can actually get full answers. I'm half with you on that, because the problem is they're asking for more time, but there's so many of them that want to respond to the different things. That part of the problem, I think, with the debate with the Republicans is they have too many people, so they don't know how to wrangle it.
I disagree with you. I think that if you're running for the highest position in the land, in the country, we should have 50 people running. How many millions of Americans are there?
50
no,
people.
How many, let me ask you a question. How many Americans are there? This person has to represent
300 million people.
Right.
Okay.
So you got 300 million people, and you're down to only 10 or 15. That's pretty good. Even on the Democrat side, you've got 5 people.
That's what I'm
Everyone has
saying.
the right to run. So to sit back and say you guys should just have by 4 now, it's not about the Republicans. It's about this man or this woman that's going to represent 300 million people.
Okay.
We have the right to choose that person.
One thing I'm just gonna add. I understand what you're saying, Shirley, and I kind of get what you're saying too. But do you think that's the Republicans or Democrats' fault? The fact that they have a certain amount of people, I think that should be the media's who's covering these debates. That should be their work to figure out how to make that work. Because I agree with you in the sense that you're saying it is a very hard watch. It's a very hard watch because there are so many people and everybody's trying to get their time in, and I get lost sometimes and I'm trying to catch it back in, and there's just like 8 people there just talking.
I'm going to answer that question because see, you have the Republican National Committee, you have the Democrat National Committee. Those committees make a decision on who the candidates will be allotted to go before the press. There are people who are not in these top 5 and top.
Yeah, I saw the
16.
one with Jindal and all
It could
that.
possibly
That one
be
too, yeah.
50, 60, or 100 people because there's a lot of
But you never will
registered
hear
people.
about.
Right. And those people are really of the status to be of the top entourage that they believe that are qualified. So there are checks and balances. It's not based on media. It's based on party national committees.
But they're the ones who set the debate stage of how many people are in a debate, and they had the
and
secondary
how they work
debates.
too,
And
how they work, and which is
But
that's the problem.
But what they don't control is how the media asks questions that are relevant and are not about the gotcha questions.
But let me say
need to be
let me say
gotchas.
this.
If you can't take a gotcha,
I
how are
want
you
2
gonna be
things on
president?
this because I got you even posted something. I think you put it on my page so I could read it, and I was cool with it. But what I began to walk away with was I didn't like the line of questions. But I also recognize that the majority of the questions seem to be in line with what the Republicans have made a topic of discussion about one another.
That's true.
In previous discussions. So I'm thinking that here is the inquiry that's based upon what you've been talking about.
So here's the
now to their credit, they shifted this time from talking about one another and lambasting one another on the panel, and went more outward, which I thought was a good move. But then I thought it was a little kind of off-putting to come back and say, why are you asking us about these questions? It's important that we ask you about morality, because you're always talking about morality.
Well, hold on.
What do you think about the morality in your party?
Do you think it's all of the candidates, or is it just one or two, and they're kind of like scolding the whole line of them?
I mean, I think in the previous debates it was overarching. It kind of covered. I mean, they've been attacking one another, and they've been attacking one another personally. So I think for the questions to come in personally were relevant. I mean, when we looked at the Democratic debate, Hillary Clinton had to answer all these personal questions that may not necessarily be relevant to what the job she's gonna do.
But fantasy football
talked about Benghazi.
Well, I get you with the fantasy football.
Okay,
I mean,
so here's one.
I get you on that.
So here's another one that I was thinking about, because I've been watching the Republicans too, and I've noticed that Mark Rubio, he
came out good on that debate.
Yeah, he was really good. But the thing was I don't hear a lot of Mark Rubio back talking anybody else. Yet they came at him just as hard as they came at everybody else. I just feel like it was.
I think we're not used to seeing journalists be journalists.
No,
I think you're totally wrong. I think we're not used to seeing journalists be jerks.
Do you think these are personal
These people were
vendettas, though?
jerks. Absolutely, they were jerks. They were out of line, and the gotcha questions were unacceptable.
What other gotcha question? Okay, fantasy football still isn't a gotcha.
Give me another gotcha.
That's a dumb question.
There
it's
were
not a
several
gotcha.
gotcha questions. You didn't even come up with one, and I gave you that
That's what I'm
one.
trying to think of. They talked about their economic plans, and they got with it, and they go, "How are you going to do that?" Because looking at the numbers and the way you've released this, it looks like it's going to be a $2 billion deficit, Ben Carson. Oh, no, that's I didn't ever said 10%. I was thinking more like 15. Okay, you're still $1.5 trillion in the hole. He didn't answer the question. That's not a gotcha question. That's you said this is how our economic policy should be.
Who said, Mike, this thing was a whole total thrash of a debate? It wasn't a horrible debate.
Yeah.
But let me
finish. It was not a horrible debate. There were questions asked that were relevant and that made strong points to show what the candidates can handle. I will say they were equipped and they were sharp on them. But there were other questions that were so thrown off that it just was out of line. And I think that when, again, you're running for the highest position of the land of the United States of America, you're going to expect some type of respect from journalists. And if they're going to get to the point where they're going to start asking, well, what color underwear you wore last week? you just don't know what they might come with.
Let's talk about some of the questions that they did ask. What I noticed in this debate is that they asked a lot more questions about finances and how you're going to help the deficit of the country, rather than moral questions about abortion and
immigration.
Immigration. They didn't ask too much about immigration. So do you think that was a better route, like as far as like the questions, the media asking those rather than the other ones, or do you want to hear
but if
both?
Those questions got personal, then the resistance is that was an inappropriate question. I mean, I do remember the moment when Donald Trump said, "That's a horrible question." He grabs his microphone because Huckabee had been asked whether or not he thought that Donald Trump had the moral compass or sensibility to run the office of the free nation, and they thought that was an uncomfortable question. But to me, I thought with Huckabee being a guy who always talks about moral values, maybe that was an appropriate question.
But let's talk about what Huckabee answered that. He says, well, let me think about it. I've got a Donald Trump tie. And then they said, well, was it made in America or is it made in China? So then it was like a joke after that.
Well, but that was on the panel. That was
not there.
That was the panel.
Well, they had to keep going with it.
But they didn't, because he could have answered the question. He could have just answered the question. Now, what he did, which I thought was a great bunt, is he says, well, he'd be better than Hillary Clinton any day and twice on Sundays.
Right.
That was a good maneuver. That was a good maneuver.
And I think that probably showed him well.
It did.
But I think this whole thing of we were mishandled, really? You all have been mishandling one another.
No, they have not been mishandling one another. I thought that they were very generous, and I think they as you can just gave an example of one that was like yin versus yang. Let's talk about this. Let's go ahead and balance that. So I think they've been doing that continuously and consistently. I think the problem is that the journalists that are out there got those gotcha questions again. What kind of panties did you have on last week? Did you have sex Tuesday or Wednesday? You don't know what questions they're going to ask. Was it Marco Rubio or Cruz? They continue to hound him about his financial situation. question. He came back, said, I came from parents that were immigrant. They were poor. We didn't have much money. I had to go through the loan. He talked about what every American person goes through financially to get themselves through the process to move up into a higher power, a higher financial position. But what I thought that question goes back to what you said earlier. Was that question relevant enough that other people could have came in on and expanded on that would have been relevant to the American people? No, it was so narrowed and so focused and so targeted on one person, it eliminated the panel an opportunity in some sense. Some of those questions I was like,
but if I'm weighing out between the multi-billionaire of Donald Trump versus the impoverished and not so financially lucrative,
I understand that.
That becomes a very good question in me looking at this panel.
I would agree with that, but I think on the other hand, there were other questions that were so personal that if I'm an outside candidate and I want to wing in, how do I wing in without being affected in some way? I want to wing in. I think that you have to think of the question broad enough that other candidates can jump on board. There was a lot of pivot.
But that wasn't the debate format.
A pivot process in responding to a debate is they'll start off and then they'll pivot off.
But you can't do that with more than 3 people. You can't do that. That's my problem.
You can pivot all the time.
So either way it goes,
pivot all the time.
Either way it goes, the debate was an interesting one. I thought there were some very good questions. My question to you guys is, who do you think did the worst on there as far as that goes? I was looking. I mean, I have my opinions on it, but without being biased, Republican or Democrat, just saying they gave the best show, basically. Who do you think gave the worst show?
Jeb?
Do you think?
I think Jeb ruined his. I think Rubio's.
Let me ask you about Jeb. Do you think it's because he didn't get as much time as he usually gets? Is why he did better?
I thought Jeb did better than before.
I thought Jeb is steady.
Exactly.
He's a sleeper, which I think
agree with that.
There's a lot of people in America that would love that guy because there's some consistency. For me, in answering your question, I think it was Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump is very rapidly becoming who we've always known him to be.
Okay.
Which is just not a really serious candidate, because now that we're getting to the meat of it and we are asking these personal questions, Donald Trump seemed to have kind of fallen back.
What I've always been saying, I've always been saying that he never gets to the meat of the question, but we'll keep going.
Yes,
so
he always says it.
I always think you guys are so wrong, because you are. Donald Trump was very steady. He was consistent. He played the role that he needs to. He didn't stand out. No, I didn't think he stand out. I think the person that was like the crickets in the room was Kasich.
Yeah.
I think Kasich is a great guy, but see how none of us have mentioned him.
I think Kasich did well. Yeah, exactly. I think he didn't get enough.
But you know what? It's always about the character, who you remember. Who do you remember? Who do you want to talk about when we talk about Judd? I thought Judd, as far as his stance and him being able to communicate, was much better. We haven't mentioned Ben Carson. I think Ben Carson had a better suit.
Okay, so I just want to let me just add something about Kasich. If I was gonna vote Republican, I would vote for Kasich. He be saying some real things.
He's the closest guy in every poll head up against any Democrat to beat. He's the only one of all the
Republicans. Do you think that you have to have some form of charisma for this office?
No, definitely.
Do you think that goes along?
That's like almost 60% of what you need for this.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand that's why Kasich isn't doing that well. But when he speaks about something, because he gets real frustrated and just starts talking. But when he speaks about something, I'm like, you know what?
It makes sense.
I feel you, dog.
But it doesn't stay afterwards, does it?
My heart goes out to you. That's not how politics work here.
I know. I understand that. I'm just saying that's.
Kasich is a great guy. He's very knowledgeable. If you had a baseball team, you go, I want Kasich. You would pull him part of your team, right? But that's not. But that's not how baseball is played in politics. It's not.
They should choose him. Would you bench him?
Oh yeah, they would bench him.
So let's move on. We were talking about
too many people.
Carson, you said he had a good suit on. We were talking about Donald Trump doing well. This is our last part of our segment. It's called Sips Tea. Everybody want to just sip your tea?
Thanks.
Because all that ish that Donald Trump be talking about being high in the polls, and then Carson is now leading the Republican polls. I mean, like, what else does he have to talk about?
Is that
now?
Nationwide, though? Is he leading the Republican polls nationwide? Because I heard it was Iowa at the top part of the week, and then it was...
No, Iowa he's leading by a large margin,
like
but
double digits.
Nationwide, I think he's
Trump
got a 4%. He's got a 4% error margin. Carson has a 4% error margin above Trump.
Well, from my sources, I've been told that Ben Carson's team did a really great job of being on the ground in Iowa very early.
Okay.
And they built a large relationship on Iowa on the ground. The problem I have in the judicial process of presidency is that we look to Iowa to set the tone for the presidency, and Iowa's just this little small state.
Right.
Being from California, I think
I never got that either.
Yeah, I just don't like that. I think it should be maybe a bigger state: California, Chicago, New York. We have moved up our primaries. We're not above Iowa, but what happens is most candidates know that Iowa is the turning point, but is it the final note? It's never always the final note.
Interesting enough, we're talking about Ben Carson and superseding Donald Trump in that, is that I saw a moment of vulnerability with Donald Trump when he was addressing Iowa.
You don't like Donald.
No. It's not that I don't like him. I just don't think he's presidential. But I don't. But because I think he's a great character. I find him entertaining. But Donald got before Iowa and said, "I need you to come up in the polls, Iowa."
You know what?
He all but begged them, and I was like, "Wow, that's a vulnerable moment, Donald."
And I was thinking about that too, and I saw that, and I also I listened to the podcast where he was talking about, like, where he admitted, like, yeah, I'm down in the polls. I don't know why. He's like, I don't know why I'm down in the polls, but at the same time, that was that vulnerability that I haven't seen in Trump. And I guess, my question is, like, what do you do now? Because I know they fluctuate. They go up and down, and we have still a lot of time, and he could be back up or he could be down. But it seems like he got
all
real.
of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it looks like he got real defeated on this one, and he seems like he can't get to Carson the way he wants to get to him, and I think that's bothering.
Low energy.
So
Carson won't go down to his
so
level.
my question is, what do you think his strategy will be now that he doesn't have that attack mode that he can get with other candidates?
If he's smart, he'd go somewhere and do a cram session on policy.
Okay.
Because on policy, he's not really strong. I mean, he's good for the sound bites and the big labels, and he's good for that shock effect. But now it's getting down to the nitty gritty, and he's got to have something more substantive to put behind his gravitas, so to speak.
That's a problem. His tax plan is $13 trillion of extra debt.
I get you, and if they keep
and
running
that's
that, he's
coming
going to
from
be in big trouble.
Republican or from conservative economists. They're like, this doesn't work at all. Like, I just wish there was a better Republican.
Okay, well, it comes down to numbers.
1,000 of them to choose from.
On my viewpoint,
There's
I think it
plenty.
comes down to numbers and money. And John O'Neill's to build more of a relationship within certain urban communities. He needs to look at his team as a whole and say, where are we failing? Why is Carson growing in the polls? To be honest, I'm going to throw all y'all a curve. I think there's a dark horse.
Who's that?
And the dark horse
Queso.
method is, I don't think either one of these candidates are your front runners anymore. I think the GOP is getting ready to throw a dark in there. And I don't know what that dark horse is, and it could be Rubio. Because they've already made their own deals with the PAC that, Jeb is not on. Jeb is just not moving up fast enough. He's not going down in the numbers. He's no longer double digits. He's a one-digit number. So now they're thinking again, same thing how they had to think about the Speaker of the House. They had to reassess if they were going to go with one way, instead they went another way. So now that Ryan will obviously, quote unquote, may become or is designated to become the Speaker of a House, I think there's a dark horse.
Well, let's
That's all I'm saying.
Rubio, do you guys really think he's got it?
Yeah, he's got
before we
it
get to
versus everybody
Rubio,
else.
theoretically, so let's say Carson is the front runner. Is he going to be a good candidate? Is he going to be the
She'll eat
good
him up and throw him
nomination
out.
for the Republican? You don't think
I'm
so?
a Republican. I'll say no. He's got no chance. Let me tell you. Let's give a shout out to Chris Christie because we have not mentioned his name. Jersey boy in the house. Did he put it down? Did he put it down?
thought he
he
did
put it
terrible.
down for the New York. Are you kidding me?
He put that
shut
terrible.
it. He shut him down.
He
and
shut
said,
that
"No,
bridge
Jersey
down.
accent?
He
Is
shut
your
that bridge
Jersey
down.
accent? Was that
Really?
I just asked it.
That was urban. Just urban.
Well, in
Urban
the
game
house.
changer.
I'm from
West
LA,
Side
man.
with
I'm
Jersey. I was
from
like,
LA, so I just said
She went West
Jersey
Side.
boy in the
What was that?
house. That's all I'm saying.
Anyways, what about
I'm just
Christie?
saying. Look, Christie
shut the
did a
bridge
great.
down.
Yeah, he
Go
shut
ahead.
the bridge down when it came down to it. He did shut the bridge, and that was good. When it came to the issue with the fantasy football, the question was addressed to Judge Bush, and he came in there and said, "Look, are we really talking about fantasy football?" There was another point where they were trying to talk to him. They overtalked him. He says, "Wait a minute. I want to say something. I'm going to get him across." He cut him off and he took his shirt off and just basically laid down the law. Look, we know he's shut the bridge down. We know he's got his also bag of problems, just like Hillary has a lot of bag of her problems with her hypocritical actors. Not hypocritical, Hillary Clinton plan. But I will say that I do believe that Chris Christie did do his good part on that debate.
That is a non-issue.
But we didn't remember him.
No, I did. Jersey
When you said
boy in
numbers
the
and money,
house.
how's he doing on money? Because I haven't paid attention to how he's doing on money. Is he raising money? Not really?
I
Okay.
won't say yes or no.
It's been
I
slowing
can't
down.
say. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, let's jump back to the debate
Rubio
because
got
I
a
was
lot
just
of
thinking
money
about
off the
something.
debate.
So they were in Colorado. There was like, I wanted some more like drug questions. Like I know they
Drug question?
because it's
Marijuana, or what are you talking about?
Well, because they brought up the question like, how do you feel about? I think it was the Kasich about how do you feel about the legalization of recreational use of marijuana in the state of Colorado? This, all that. He came and said something, but I just thought there was going to be more. I mean, Ted Cruz made a dumb joke about it.
Look, I don't think they talked about it. I don't think that's a relevant question.
Well, I think drugs is a big
I
deal.
don't. But no, because I think eventually marijuana is going to be legalized. So I think there's other things.
But isn't that why it would be relevant? Because it's
exactly.
not yet, and they're still debating. People want to know who could represent their interest on that or their vote on that.
I think they
Paul.
did that before.
Rand Paul's the only guy there that wants to
and then
legalize
I think the drug like question is so big because you talk about drugs, but then you also talk about like the incarceration of African Americans and certain amount of drugs and the disparities that happen because of drug arrests and just everything that comes up from drugs.
You want to get some people out there at the polls
I
telling you going to
totally think
legalize
you're wrong.
marijuana
I think
for
you're totally
recreational
wrong.
purposes.
I don't think the drug question was a prominent question. I don't think that is the biggest issue. I think the biggest
not the
issue.
biggest.
No, but it's
is
not an
police-
issue.
No,
issue.
the biggest issue is police brutality. If anything, you had to say, okay, what are we
Okay,
going to
so
talk
let's talk about that. Why didn't they talk about police brutality?
Why did they talk about more of that with the Democratic debate? I mean, these are questions that are
They're not
relative
talking
to
about
the
it
people.
But they
either
talked
debate.
about that before.
Look,
in the previous debates, those questions were discussed.
You know what they
That is
want?
true.
Let me tell you what they're
They
doing.
did
talk about
They're
it more.
chasing, the media is chasing the numbers.
Yeah.
They're chasing that 3.1 or 23 million, 23.1 views from the very first debate. And if they are able to get crazy sound bites or crazy, I want to watch the whole thing. It was so crazy. It's about the ratings.
Yeah.
So
And
now
for the
whose fault-
candidates, it's about the job.
So
that-
now whose fault is that then? Because if you think about the first debate, it was a circus and it wasn't because of the media. I think it was because of the candidates and Trump. And so if they're trying to cater to that type of viewers, I mean, they kind of did it to themselves in that sense. If we're talking about that, I mean, what do you think?
Who did what to themselves?
The candidates did they did it to themselves as far as the
No, I think
media coming
the
out like that.
American people, like when we had Arnold Schwarzenegger run for a governor here, we all were like,
was dumb,
"Wow,
too.
I can't believe it! Wow!" So I think that people love the wow factor. So I think after you get a wow, it's like having great hit a weed. Once you hit it once, and the second time it's not the same type of high. So it was a great high at first. We're like, "Wow, Donald's running. Let's see what he's going to say." And then once you get enough of the Donald stunts. Then after a while, you just lose it. It's a fizzle. So let's get down to the substance of the matter.
Did Donald fizzle out for you?
Absolutely not. I think Donald will stand his ground. I think all of them stood their ground. I think the key thing is Iowa's going to set the tone. For some reason, if Donald does fizzle and Ben Carson will fizzle, I just don't see Donald. I just don't see Ben Carson.
But if Ben Carson has Iowa.
Yeah,
That
And if
doesn't mean
Iowa sets the
anything.
tone,
Well, now
if they set the tone,
we got
then
2
what?
months, guys.
Then
We
what?
have 3 months. We have 3 months.
Yeah,
to
3
Iowa.
months.
But
A
I'm
lot
saying,
could happen in
Yeah,
3 months.
What
exactly.
happens in the Republican Party if Ben Carson, the low energy guy, comes up and he obviously has Iowa, and if he makes it to the primaries with taking Iowa over,
You know, there was another black guy who was like high up in the polls about the same time a couple years back. I don't know if you guys know that guy. So you never
Obama?
can go by no, not Obama. I'm talking about a Republican candidate.
I forget his name.
So we have to
He didn't
continue. Because he decided to step out of the race. It's too early. Who knows? Ben Carson might do the same thing in December. Not that he's saying that he is or that he will. He's in a good position right now. Look, that dark horse still come up to the plate. Donald's not out of it. We'll know when the numbers
So let's
come
talk
in.
about that dark horse. Rubio is a
says
possibility of that. So why would you think why would you think Rubio would be that person coming out of the woodwork and just take
He's
it over?
young. He's Hispanic. He's religious. He's down the rung like Republican. Like he's Hispanic, which reaches over, which would fix a lot of what Donald Trump hurt.
And he was
With
in
Hispanic
Florida,
conservative.
correct?
Yeah, and Florida. He's
Yeah.
a Florida senator. Yeah.
I agree, Rubio,
Right.
for all those reasons that
And
Mike
he's
just
young.
said. But I also think that Rubio suffers from what I believe Hillary suffered from, which is that Rubio is very manufactured in his responses. In terms of being very present to it, he's just too packaged for it. It's almost like this dude spent time in political camp somewhere,
Yeah, I agree.
and they said answer here, answer like that. And I think that he will suffer from that, which will make him not easily trusted.
I totally disagree with you. I think that Rubio delivered. and that
think so, too.
he meets the criteria that Mike said. You remember when it comes to party lines, when it comes to appointing your candidate, what candidate you want, you're trying to win your base first. You've got to win your base first. And the way you win your base first, state by state, is meeting those guidelines. Those southern states, those Midwestern states meet everything that Mike said.
But
Christian, Catholic, Hispanic, everything that you said. Speaks English, bilingual. I mean, those
I
are...
get all that. It's just something about it that doesn't...
And
I'm not against him. It's just something about it that's not landing. And I'm thinking... What is it? Is it? And I'm beginning to
what is not landing? He is landing. It's just right now.
He looked good.
Well, I mean,
He looked good. I thought he looked good.
So I
did
don't
good.
think he sounded it. I think in the first two debates he sounded more packaged, but like when he went off on the and I thought that was BS that people were calling out, like he's not in the Senate because he's running for president. That's what happens with everybody who runs for president.
Yeah,
John McCain
Obama did the
didn't
same
show
thing.
up.
Yeah, I
McCain,
think they made the
I never made an issue because I'm like, well, yeah, he's running for president.
But what about this movement of people saying that he's not doing his job and he's ripping them off? And all that kind of stuff?
Because he's not there,
He's
but
not
they're
there.
just selectively choosing to not like him.
I just
for it.
want to I see what you guys are saying, but I agree with Don. It's like something about it's like you just get that little whiff. You know that whiff someone farts and you don't smell it right away, but it just kind
guys
of
are
whiffs
so
behind you.
full
You be
of
like, what is that?
looks
Like,
like
it's like-
Republican.
like-
This was a
It's
great
not
guy.
even hate
This
on him.
was a great
It's
guy.
because when he
This is a great
speaks,
guy.
when he speaks, I follow him.
Yeah.
He
Great guy.
what he says makes
John
sense, and I
is
think it's
great.
logical. But it's that thing. It's like, what is it? I don't know what it is, and I just
know.
wonder if it's that what I would call inauthenticity that may
Or it may be
impact him down the line.
presidential.
I
That's
think
what
he-
you're
Well, no,
He
thinking.
gets the most
I
votes
actually think
than
that he
anybody.
looks presidential, and he even sounds presidential. But there's something about him that doesn't connect. I think he does.
I think you're wrong, and I think there's a lot of things that connect, and he meets the guidelines of the GOP.
Okay.
He missed me.
Well, and
He's my choice for
Yeah.
that's going to win. I think Kasich should be the guy that they choose.
me
but
too, but that won't
Rubio's the
happen.
guy I think that's going to
You
get
know,
it.
Kasich could be that dark horse too, but you just never know. It's like
Man,
he's
if Kasich
got
comes
he
out-
needs real money.
Hey,
It's all
I'll be-
about
yeah.
money too.
Kasich has me like I like his idea. I don't like him. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't like him.
I get
Have
it.
you guys
I
read
like
about
his
him?
idea.
He's pretty, like, I mean, the thing about him is he's the one Republican really on stage that I've seen actually, I'll give Chris Christie a little credit here there because him and Obama, when New Jersey was hit by the hurricane, you know, they worked together. But Kasich's really, I mean, Ohio is a strong union state. He's a Republican in a strong union state.
Absolutely.
He actually has a decent tax plan. I like his tax plan. It would actually help stimulate the economy while cutting some fat, and it actually made sense. He was the only Republican saying, yeah, we do need a slight bigger tax on the payroll tax, but that would even out most of Social Security spending.
So why do you think the base isn't paying attention?
Because he's
to
not
him?
crazy, so he doesn't get the
I would not
soundbite.
say that he's not paying
he's no
attention.
charisma, kind of say. He doesn't have. He's very.
Falls flat.
He's very like blunt. Like he'll just say it, and he'll just be like, "Yeah, I think this is stupid." Blah blah blah, and it's like. You just don't have that feel. Like he doesn't have that charisma, like Rubio does.
He
Rubio has
reminds
a
me of
little
that
charisma.
comedian, the Larry Sanders show.
Larry Sanders.
Do you know what I'm talking about? On HBO? Ah, dang it.
You're the only person.
You're the only
I can't-
comedian.
Invite
here.
there.
Anyway, he
my
sounds just like him. Where I'm like, that is kind of boring. But
What do you guys,
Gary Shandling? That's the name.
Yes. I see
He
what
sounds
you
like
said.
Gary
When you said
Shandling
it,
to
was
me.
like immediately. What do you think about Carly?
I think she's fading into oblivion, but yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I
that's
thought
kinda-
Carly
Her name
was
hasn't come up.
great.
You thought she was great?
I thought she answered
She
very
smiled, and it was heaven.
It was weird because she mentioned
It
that
looked
she,
so
they, like,
fake.
Exactly.
It was
I was
scary.
like,
I was
not
like,
smart.
I literally.
It looked like it was Botox.
Are you guys
Don.
going to sit back and beat these people in person, or are we going to talk about the issues? That's what makes no sense.
Well,
when you
no,
do
I'm
this.
just
Sometimes,
mentioning.
it's just, Shirley, you have to admit this. That sometimes a person doesn't have the it factor, and so they could speak substance.
You know
and
what?
it just
We
miss
made
you.
that means you just don't like her.
Well,
smile.
okay,
She,
so-
well, she
so-
broke
she
the
had a
record
great
for
smile. I liked it when she
PolitiFacts for
smiled.
most false
Well,
facts
let
in
me
a
talk
debate.
about
Did she really?
Carly.
Yeah,
let me
she's
talk about
bad.
Carly Fiorina real quick. The one thing about her that kind of like gets me is that, and I don't know all the facts on this, and I'm gonna have to check it out. But it's how they talk about how she ran like HP, like, and it went real
Ran in the
bad,
ground.
and ran in the ground in a sense, and that's what kind of like throws me off of her because I'm thinking like, who, and even to. You know, even to Trump's Trump, yeah, he put it in a good way. He's like, yeah, I filed for bankruptcy for my business. Everybody does that, but I'm still tough. I never filed for bankruptcy, and it's kind of like, Carly's like, well, I failed, and yeah, you did. You can't say anything else. Like it's.
So what's your question?
Well, it's not my question. It's just my statement on Carly is I think that I don't like her because I don't feel that she is good financially or good leadership skills as far as like.
She had a corporate failure, so you think that speaks.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I come from.
Corporate failure wouldn't hurt as much if every HP employee was like on Twitter going nuts saying, "Do not vote for her." Like that's been a thing going on lately. Is the people that were on the board that fired her, the employee, they do not like her. She did a lot of things. Like HB barely came out when she left.
Right.
So it's not like when you have nobody on your team from what you're supposed to be like, look, I'm a business leader, and then everyone who is in that business goes, we don't like her, and she was terrible at business. That doesn't help you.
All right.
Well, Meg Whitman's bailing her out right now with Hewlett Packard. Look, every guy and every woman has a shot to be president of the United States. Yeah. I think we have to come down and to find out who's going to be the top 5, who's the top 3, and then we can really have fun.
Maybe I should run for independent.
Well, maybe we'll figure that out next week. Someone else will obviously probably be on the top of the polls. Maybe it probably won't be Carson. I just don't think he can make it, but we'll see. Check us out next Friday on Black Hollywood Live, Black Tea Party. Check us out on BHL online on Instagram and Facebook, and check us out on our subscribe to our page on YouTube. We love you. I'm Anthony Martin. Peace out.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for watching and your support. Make sure you look at our short videos. We have a lot of short videos on Facebook. Go to Facebook, check them out. Check me out. Also, I will be on the Laura Ingraham Show Tuesday or either a Monday, one of the top conservative syndicated show in Washington, D.C. Check out Laura Ingraham. Look me up on their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Shirley Hussar.
I'm going to check you out, Hussar.
Me too.
And you check me out, Don Nash. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Don Nash.
Hi, Michael Teemont at Michael Teemont. MIHKELTEEMANT.
I love you, Mike.
Look at michaelteemont.com for all that stuff.
All right, y'all. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.
West Side, New Jersey. West Side.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in. The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.